Hey everybody, this is Eugene Driscoll of ValleyIndy.org, and I am invading Valley Sports Rewind, the podcast usually hosted by Mike Cannici. Did I say your last name correctly, Mike? I just want to...
Yeah, you did, and you're one of the few, because it's usually either Cannici or Cannici. They never say it right, so good job.
Boom! Public education right here, Somers, New York, class of 1992. We're going to be talking today. This is a Valley Sports Rewind episode, though, but it's a very special one. Not only is it a crossover where the boring news guy gets involved, but we're also going to be talking about the next class, or the incoming class, of the Derby High School Athletic Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Boom, I got the name right. I am...
You're batting 1,000.
Yeah,
right
there
now.
we go. I couldn't remember the term. And Mike is sort of my guest, but not really. He's going to be doing a lot of talking. But also joining him is a Hall of Fame committee member. Yeah. Jenn Moffat. And before we begin, Jenn, welcome.
Why, thank you, sir.
I just want to say, I want to kiss your guys' butts just a little. Just a little. We're a nonprofit, online, independent, shoestring budget news site run by two guys. We're going to be here for 2018. We don't know about 2019. That is the nature of the beast. It is not a great time to be the, quote, media, unquote, in America for various reasons, and we feel some of that. The fact that you guys come on, and Mike, you do a podcast here every week, helps us. So I really appreciate you guys, because you both do so much for the community. And as a local news site, we're not in it for the money or the page views or to print scandalous stories all the time. We just believe in local journalism. And so I just wanted to thank you guys for making us look good by being associated with us, because it helps in the community. It helps us come across as humans, which, in fact, on most days we are. So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you, and thank you guys, because you guys have always supported our Hall of Fame from day one. Before we even had our first ceremony, you guys were always, putting stuff out there for us, so thank you.
You were our first guest, Mike. When we did this, we used to do this show live in New Haven on WNHH 103.5. It's still, this broadcast is still heard there.
Right.
Valley Sports Rewind is 2 p.m. Mondays on 103.5 FM. Valley Navel Gazing, our weekly news talk show, is noon. Actually, it's 1 p.m. Noon and 1 p.m. They do a Valley 2-hour block where we come in and take over New Haven. So, Mike, you were our first guest when we did the Valley Navel Gazing live in New Haven, and we actually replayed that episode once, and we couldn't get you on the phone. There were so many technical problems.
Yeah. I remember listening to that.
Yeah, and you bailed me out because I was completely nervous. I was just frozen. Ethan was no help at all, the other reporter here. He was just staring at me as I'm trying to answer the phone and type to you on Facebook. Right. And then when you came on, you were so exhaustive in your knowledge, it just bailed me out. So a belated 1.5 years later, thanks for making me look good again.
Right. That was a long time ago. Hard to believe.
All right. So that's it. That's the show. That's all we have time for. We'll see you guys
next week. Thanks, everybody.
All right. So enough blabbing. Maybe I'll cut all this out. I'm glad we didn't do this Facebook Live. People would be throwing darts at us via the comment section. But all right. So the Derby Athletic High School Athletic Hall of Fame, started. Your first class was what, a year ago?
Yes, April 2nd, 2016 was the first class. It was the class of 2015 because when we voted and stuff like that, it came out in July or August of 2015.
Like the Oscars. That's the way the Oscars did.
Pretty much. And
did you announce any wrong names? You can tell me now. Like the Oscars, did anything like that happen?
No. One of the most important things when you're doing something like this is to always get the names right, or you'll never hear the end of it.
So now you have the second class coming up?
And basically the second class, the ceremony is going to take place Saturday night, April 8th, 6 o'clock p.m. at the AM Club. Doors are going to open at 5 p.m. And basically we're going to induct 7 new members this year. And we also give out a service award recipient each year, and it's in honor of longtime contributor Bill Pucci.
Okay, who's been on this podcast once or twice, I think. That's all. And so, Jenn, what do you do as a member of the committee? What is your role You're involved in
Makes
everything.
me look good.
You're right. You keep Mike from getting in trouble.
I kind of keep the organizational piece intact, fundraising piece, and keeping everybody on task and making sure things are done when they need to be done in order to have a successful event. And
how difficult? Like how
voting member of the committee as well.
And in terms of the funds you need to raise, what are some of the things you have to buy?
We got to buy, each year for the banquet, we have plaques. So we've got a plaque that goes in the high school. There's also a plaque that goes to the recipient. Our service award winner also receives a plaque. And so those type of things. And then any marketing materials that we want to have out there. We're looking into pens this year so that everybody can take a little pen home. So they have a little souvenir from the event. And we're also doing, this is the first year we're doing a scholarship at the high school for graduating seniors. We're doing one male and one female graduating athlete who has a love for Derby sports in the community.
And I would assume that's a huge thing because now you're entrenched. That means you're doing something. That's a legacy thing going on. Does that help maintain the consistency and stability of the organization going forward, do you think?
I definitely think so. And I think it's important because someday, the class of 2017, for instance, you never know. There could be a male or female someday that'll be eligible and will be considered for the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, you can't just think about the past. You have to think about the present, too. And it's really important to do something for these students and athletes.
And that train whistle, by the way, for our listeners at home, we're at 158 Main Street overlooking the Ansonia train station. So the train is running and on time today.
I actually saw somebody waiting for it on my way in for the first time ever. I've never seen anybody over there.
Yeah,
I didn't know a train still came through here.
And a lifelong Derby Valley resident. Yeah, maybe we should veer off right now. Jim Gilday.
I know Jim Gilday.
If he's listening to this,
hey guys, talk about it.
Of the Connecticut Commuter Rail Council is If we had a better train service, and it's coming, the state is spending some big bucks to improve the Waterbury branch.
Right.
So anyway, I just was saying all that because that's the horn. That's our local flavor. So, okay, is there still time to take out an ad in the program book you have coming up, Jen?
Yeah, there's definitely still room. Luckily we've got I think we're close to 100% of returning ads from last year. We've added a few as well. So if you didn't have an ad last year, or if you did, just reach out to one of the committee members and we can get your ad in there for this year.
And how do I do that? If I'm listening to this podcast when we release this in a week or so, how do I reach out to one of those committee members?
You can give me a call, 203-516-4074. You call Mike.
203-305-9442. And you could also email me at neech76@aol.com.
And you can also find out more information about the Hall of Fame on Facebook if you search Derby High School Athletic Hall of Fame.
I just created the actual event for the banquet. It's on our Facebook page, Derby High School Athletic Hall of Fame. So you can always just comment there, and one of us will respond to you as well.
And the prices are affordable. I mean, we're not talking.
Yeah, it's a $30 ticket. And we'll probably do a 50-50 that night. So, yeah.
And as far as ads go, we have 3 that you could do. We have a quarter page, which is $25. We have a half page, which is $50, and a full page is $100. And, sometimes we've had a couple of people recently just donate to our Hall of Fame, give us a nice donation, and people have done that as well. So, been a lot of support since we started this thing.
Yeah, were you guys surprised by how it just sort of took off and is doing so well?
No, I don't think so, because the Valley and Derby in general is about the tradition and the roots of sports in our cities and our towns.
What about you, Mike?
I mean, I was a little nervous in the beginning. We had the first meeting, and we all kind of met at Archie Moore's in Derby just to discuss, can we make this happen? And that was August of 2014. And, we talked, and basically we really just talked about how can we fund it. That's going to be the toughest part. Because, the voting part is the fun part. You get to do that, and you get to, debate with each other, stuff like that. But
that doesn't sound fun.
it believe me, it is. But
we have a great committee.
The funding was my biggest concern. And, it took us, I would say it took us a good year before we got everything in order to pick a class and stuff. Like a lot of our meetings in the beginning were trying to find ways to fund finding ways on how we want to pick a class, how do we do it, stuff like that. So it wasn't something we rushed, and I think that was good because had we rushed it, it probably would not be successful.
And so that's the key to keeping it going. Make sure you have
Right.
all your ducks in a row at first. So let's talk about, this might be Ethan Fry arriving to work with coffee. Let's talk about the, we've probably done what they called burying the lead.
Hey, Ethan.
Hello, Ethan.
What's going on? Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. The class, the inductees, the people that are going in to the Derby Athletic Hall of Fame. So now, what is the class of 2016? we call it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm very bad with numbers. Let's start going over them. This is what people want to hear. Who's going in?
Okay, so we have 7 this year.
How many did you
And
have last year?
We had 10. You know, the first
Okay.
class, we knew it was going to be a large class because you're talking about just tremendous athletes, and your first class, you really had to have a big class. So we knew that. This year, we kind of decided, we would do 6 or 7 at the most. And I think the committee did a great job, how we voted it. And really, I don't think anybody was disappointed with the inductees. But basically, we have 7. We have Vitello, who was a former basketball coach at Derby in the late 50s, early 60s, but he was also a very good athlete at Derby. I believe he was a 3-sport player. He played football, basketball, and baseball, and he was a real good athlete. He played for Derby back in like the 40s, so he was really good.
Is the gym named after him?
Alphonse
Yes.
Vitello
Oh,
Gymnasium. Yep.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. One of the first stories we did in 2009 was the Board of Aldermen in
Yeah.
Derby made a motion to do that. And I believe his family was there, and they
Yeah.
were super sweet, and it was a great story. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and then we have Brent Sanford, who has, he died a few years back. I believe he died in 2011. And he was, again, a 3-sport star at Derby. He was a tremendous athlete. Some say he was one of the best football players Derby ever had. He had a great collegiate career as well. And
Where do you play in college?
I believe he played. I don't want to get this wrong.
Don't worry. Yeah, just keep going.
But
It's live. We record this live, people.
right.
And
But
Mike comes in every single week. Every guest always comments on it because I'm always sitting here silently recording these. Guy comes in. He's got no paperwork. When Ethan and I do our podcast, we've got Google open. Ethan's researching things on the fly. I'm taking pills to make my memory better, and you just do it stream of consciousness. So the fact you just didn't remember a detail is remarkable. It's never happened in 2 years.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so I rudely interrupted. Go ahead.
Right. But
You don't have to agree that I
again,
rudely interrupted.
He was a great player at Derby. I mean, the coaching staff loved him. His players, I'll tell you right now, one of our Hall of Famers, Vinny Greco, speaks so highly of him. So many of the other players that played with him always taught. Our committee member, Walt Bisadecki, was a big Brent supporter. I mean, so many people just raved about how great this guy was. And he was also a very good basketball player. He took Derby, I believe, to the semis his senior year in high school for basketball. And, Derby's not known for being a basketball school. So he was a tremendous athlete.
And have you, I assume you reached out, of course, and told the gentleman's family that this is coming?
Yes, and
who does that, and what is that like?
Basically, I will do it. I'll tell you a good story. We did have one committee member that we felt we all needed to call him. We had all kind of known him for years, and we thought it'd be a good idea. So we called him at one of our meetings that night. We put him on speakerphone, and we basically told him that he had gotten inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he was very, choked up, and he was very happy about it. And that's the thing that's really great about doing this is not only is it us honoring them, but we take a lot of joy and pride in being able, we get excited when we call them. I had Bill Duggan for my principal when I went to Bradley School, and I just thought, he was an unbelievable principal. I haven't seen him in probably 15 years. And when I called him, I couldn't tell you how excited I was to let him know he had gotten inducted. And that's the thing about this is what's so great about it. And we also meet people that we never knew before. We talk to their families, and that's been the most rewarding thing is, seeing how excited they are and how honored they are. That's what makes it worth it.
I just spoke with Jim Keefe on the phone, who's another one of our inductees, and it's just great. And we had a 10-minute conversation, and I can't wait to meet him on April 8th. And I told him, I said, make sure you put aside a couple minutes because we're going to chat a bit.
That's
and he's
awesome.
looking forward to it too. So it's those type of things where I may not know some of these athletes, but then you see their stats and you research what they've accomplished at Derby High School and for the athletic program. And it's exciting to be able to meet them on one day, everybody in one room.
So that was how many we go over? That was the first.
I think that's
two.
because I mentioned
Two.
Bill Duggan. We
Yeah,
mentioned
yeah. We really should have broken out
Jim,
a piece of paper
Jim
for this.
Keefe. He had played multiple sports at Derby, but he was an unbelievable track star at Derby. That's the thing too, Gene. One thing that we want to do is it's for every sport.
Represent everybody.
Yeah, it's not just football. It's not just wrestling, whatever it might be. It's every sport that they excelled in. And I mean, Jim Keefe was, some consider him the best track runner Derby ever had. And I mean, that's how good he was. I believe he ran at Central. Just tremendous athlete. Then we also have Phil D'Onofrio. Phil is the only Derby player to ever make All-State in basketball.
Oh,
and
wow.
he was the class of 1958.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that last name, there's a bunch of D'Onofrios in Derby. Does anybody know like the lineage? Who's he related to?
Well, you know what? I know Tom D'Onofrio well. I don't know if they're related, but I would probably assume they are. I mean, I would think.
That's just a name you hear over and over and over
It's
again.
not a common. It's not a common name that you hear maybe in, I don't know,
Somers, New York, where I'm from. Yeah.
So I mean, I'd be inclined to believe they're related, and he's also owned a hardware store forever. Phil D'Onofrio, he still does.
Alexander
to this day.
Hardware on Persian Drive
Persian Drive,
in
yes.
Ansonia.
Oh,
Yeah.
no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
He's been around forever. And then, I mentioned Bill Duggan. Now, I told you Derby wasn't a very good basketball program, but the first ever state title that Derby sports ever had was in basketball, and it was 1951. And Bill Duggan was the MVP of that tournament. He was a tremendous player for that team. They also made the semis the year before. So they had 2 great years, his junior and senior year, and he was just a very good basketball player.
And where are you learning all this stuff from? Like,
We research it. I mean, Jack Walsh does a great job with that Derby site,
Electronic Valley.
Yes, and
Sure.
you could get a lot of information from there. We go to the library a lot. We pull out old yearbooks and we just kind of look at stuff and research. I'll tell you, those yearbooks are phenomenal. Whoever did them back then did a great job because you find out, pics alone. We were having trouble finding pictures of these guys, and you find them in these yearbooks, and it's great,
Yeah, that's a great resource. When I worked in print newspapers, Ethan and I worked at the News Times over in Danbury, and one thing you had to do every year was get a yearbook. And they are a great historical archive. I don't think people realize that.
Oh, yeah.
And newspapers, they would have, we called them the morgue. That was the
Right.
newspaper term for where you would keep all your old articles and all the old artifacts like that. But not really anymore because they laid everybody off. So anyway, moving on. So that's a good...
So now... He's probably known for what he's done with Seymour softball, but Kenny Pereira's, people may not know this, but people that, are from Derby definitely do. He's maybe considered the best basketball player Derby ever had. Now, here's a guy who's only 5'5", and he scored 1,000 points in his high school career.
Whoa, like Spud Webb.
And keep in mind of this, too, Gene. I don't know what your knowledge is of basketball,
Little to none.
but for years, there was no such thing as a three-pointer. And when Kenny Pereira's played, the three-pointer didn't exist.
Wow.
So he scored all those points without making three-pointers, which is pretty tremendous. And he's, like I said, 5'5".
That's amazing. Is there any video footage or anything like that? Have you come across anything
I would
like
love
that?
to see it.
Yeah, that must be amazing.
But I would watch Kenny play in the men's league in Derby. When I was a kid, he'd play on my father's team. They played with Jack Walsh and those guys on Kasdan. I never saw him miss a shot. It was unbelievable. Every time he threw it up, it went in. Just a phenomenal basketball player. And like I said, at 5'5" to score 1,000 points in your career, that's pretty impressive.
And was there an effort this year to get on a couple more basketball players? It seems like there's a couple of them, or is that just the way it shook out?
I think it's just the way it shook out. The top 10 that we, honored last year just happened to be a very heavy football top 10. Some wrestling, there was, Diane Paquet was in there, so with Chakron Field. But it just so happened that how we voted was heavily basketball this time around.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, is we're not favoring one sport over the other. We're going by the athlete and what the athlete did in their career. And that's really how we try to base everything on. And, you look at this class, I mean, can you argue any? I mean, I know you don't know them well enough, but people who do, could you really argue any of the 7 not being a Hall of Famer? I really don't think you could.
And who was the next on this list? Who else is going in?
So the next one is God, I know I'm missing 2. I know the last one, but there's one in between. Let me see here.
You can go to the last one, and I will. I mean, we can pause for a second. You want me to pause and get out the list? Maybe we'll.
No, it'll come to me briefly.
We're doing it live.
Yeah. So I mentioned Brent. I mentioned Bill Duggan.
Ethan's going to start
Carreras.
singing in the corner.
I did.
Should I play the Jeopardy theme? That's Ethan. Yeah, I don't know what Ethan. Was that your bar mitzvah? What was that?
Manchester United chant.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
Ethan's a communist.
I think I got them all. I think
6.
there's just one more, and that would be Charlie DeCenzo. And Charlie DeCenzo was a player for Derby from 1961 to 1964. He was a very good offensive lineman and defensive lineman. He was the winner of the Albarella Trophy, the most prestigious trophy for a Derby football player. Very good baseball player, too. But Charlie is getting in for his coaching because he was an unbelievable football coach at Derby. Coached 10 years there, and he had a record of 77 wins and only 28 defeats. Two state championships, an undefeated season in 1990, and a number 1 ranking in the state. And he also won 3 Housatonic League championships. Just tremendous coach. And, it's an honor to induct him with the other inductees. And that's what I really think. When you look at these guys, they not only contributed so much to Derby sports, they've done a lot for Derby in general. And it's just going to be awesome to induct them.
And so what happens at the ceremony, if you could go through a little bit of what, and it's April 8th, you said?
Yes.
What's it, their speeches, how's it work?
Basically, we'll have the superintendent say a few words. We always have the mayor come up and talk. I say always. This is only our second one. But we have the mayor come up and say. But it feels
like it's been around for a long time because you guys have done so much work.
And that's the other thing before I get into who comes up and speaks.
Sure.
We have gotten great support from the principal of Derby, Marty Pascal, the athletic director and vice principal of Derby, Rachel Artiz. Dr. Conway, the superintendent of Derby, has been tremendous. The Board of Ed, Kenny Marcuscio, Andy Mancini, George Kurtica, and I know I'm leaving a couple out, and I do apologize.
A lot of people on the board, yeah.
Those guys have been tremendous, supporting us. And that's been the big thing, is these guys have all come out and supported this. Nobody ever said, no, you can't do this, or we're not going to help. They've been very helpful to us. And, I can't say enough about Jack Walsh, because when we need advice for certain things, he's always, willing to meet up with us and, give us any advice he can. And I mean, that's the thing. You can't do this alone. You can't, you would think 9 people on the committee, that would be enough, but you always need people behind the scenes. And, we got people like Corey Bartone, who's tremendous behind the scenes for us. Sarah Jadek does a great job helping us with our ad book and things like that. So many people behind the scenes have done a great job helping us out.
That's awesome. And what is Sarah? Is that who designs the ads? Is that what you were?
Yeah, so we send her all the ads, and she kind of puts together the program book for us. Last year we printed it, ourselves, and this year we're looking into printing it probably professionally, so it looks really nice. But she put, she's very good at getting that stuff together. She's a phenomenal photographer, so she comes to the events and makes sure that it's documented, as well as Corey Bartone, also a phenomenal photographer. So they make sure they keep everything documented for us, so we have it for years to come.
And you're involved directly with a lot of athletes at Derby High School and Derby in general. What's been the reaction of some of the younger generations, the kids that are maybe in school now or have graduated more recently? Do they see this as a good thing? Is it a good morale builder within the Derby sports community as a whole? Yeah,
there's athletes that really do take an interest in it, and they'll stop and right outside of our gymnasium we have the plaques from last year, and they'll go over and they'll look at them and they'll read the stories, and it's interesting to see which students do and which students don't, and which athletes are more interested in and which ones aren't. And just last night we had a baseball diamond club fundraiser at the AM Club, And a couple of the kids, I said, would you guys like to come this year? Help us out, maybe do 50-50 or, just seat everybody. What would you like to do? Or would you like to just come and watch and get to enjoy that tradition? And, these are freshmen football players, baseball players, and they all they didn't know what they wanted to do, because some of them do want to listen to the stories, and some of them do want to meet the people that, have laid the path for them in the past. So it's interesting, and it's a lot of fun to start to now get the scholarships involved in the high school and just keeping everything kind of connected. And just to go back to Mike's point, the Board of Education last year, our main focus in fundraising was how do we play for the plaques. I mean, plaques are a big expense, and they helped us out with the set of plaques that were that are now hanging in the high school. So again, thank you to them, and just keeping us going when we were initially trying to set it up.
And how long do you envision being involved in this, Mike? Is this something that
Well,
because you were described recently I might have been after we recorded a podcast, but someone described you as the glue that holds the Hall of Fame together.
Well, you always need someone to kind of, organize it and stuff like that. That goes without saying. But really, the glue is the committee, and I can't say enough because they come to every meeting. Without that committee, that Hall of Fame doesn't work. And these guys and girls are all committed to this committee. They're committed to being there at meetings, and I'll tell you that's the fun part too. And Jenn will back me up on this. You were saying we got off track before. We get off track a lot at the meetings. If something gets brought up when we're going over something, we just start talking about something that happened in 1988, and we're going over it for 15 minutes, and we're joking with each other. And
the meeting will start at 7:00, and we have one thing to discuss, and the janitors are at 9:45 going, "Are you guys done?"
Yeah.
Because, it's just a lot of fun to get together and things that I have never heard of and stories I've never heard of. It's awesome to listen.
And the thing of it is some of us do know each other, but I think, myself, Jenn, and Steve Owens, who's one of the committee members, we all went to high school together. I didn't really know Jenn well in high school. Steve Owens, I think, and Jenn, they both knew each other. But the other committee members, we've known them here and there. We'll see them at games and talk for a few minutes. But I really did not know any of them that well. And we've really, because of this committee, we've gotten to know each other great, and we'll text with each other sometimes about stuff. And that's the great thing, is we've built friendships doing this committee, and everybody gets along. Now, maybe we don't always agree on everything, but we always have the same objective, and that's to make this a great Hall of Fame.
And how many people are on the committee?
We have 9 at this present time. 9 that vote. Like I said, we have people behind the scenes who definitely help, and I mentioned Corey Bartone, I mentioned Sarah Jadek.
Christina DiMartino helped us out as well.
Yeah, she's great
event.
too. I mean, came to the event last year, did the door for us, because if you think I want to do the door, you're crazy.
It was crazy last year, so thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
And then how do you manage, one thing, we're a news site, and we run a Facebook page with 13,000 people, and we put out stories all the time, and we hope to spark discussions about things to get people involved in civic life a little bit more, and Facebook is great for that, and social media is great for that. But then at other times, it can be a giant pain in your neck when conversations or threads take a turn for the worse, let's just say. How do you manage people? Because I know as a reporter, you hear things about the way, and I'm not just saying even in Connecticut, but I've worked elsewhere, where these Hall of Fames get set up, and then there's infighting, or a faction of the town is angry that this person didn't get in, and it can become, how do you stay above the fray and manage situations like that? Because you're sort of remarkable to me, Mike, because you're just so even keel, where I'm a guy I wear my nerves on the outside, and I'm always angry.
Yeah.
I'll probably live to see 50.
Listen, I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't get angry sometimes, because you will see people put things on Facebook.
Take a shot in some way,
but
without going into any...
You get mad in the moment, but then I look at it and I'm like, well, they're talking about it. So if they're talking about it, whether it's negative or positive, that's what we want. We want people to pay attention to it. We want them to support it. So if they're saying, "Oh, Mike, you're a terrible committee member, you don't know what you're doing," well, hey, you're talking about it, so it can't be a bad thing.
It's better than being ignored and living.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I would say probably 85% of it's been great as far as support goes. You're not always going to please everybody. It's like anything else, you know. You could be a great baseball coach, and you'll find one or two people, oh, no, he's not a good coach. That's just the way it is, and our committee does a great job, and at the end of the day, this Hall of Fame's here, so that's what we take out of it, and we try not to let that stuff get to us, because it's going to happen, and it's going to happen more and more as this Hall of Fame continues to move forward.
And in terms of, one of the things that's happening in Derby, the school district and the city, is that there was recently a $2 million private donation to the school district to build a field house.
Yes.
And when I say field house, it's much more than a field house. If you look back at the Valley Naval Gazing previous podcast, we talked to Dr. Conway, the Derby school superintendent, for about 30 minutes on this issue, and he goes into great detail about it. I'm wondering, has there been any talk? I know it's very, very early because the city is still setting up how to even deal with the construction and all that, but has there been any talk about maybe incorporating the Hall of Fame in some way into this field house? And I guess the superintendent had said, you look at the field, I had said, you look at the field house now and it's just a big concrete block.
Right.
But what we're talking about is almost a community center that they're envisioning at Ryan Field.
When I hear them talking about it, it's almost like a student center at a college.
Yeah.
It's really kind of the way that I hear it. And yes, the principal, Marty Pascal, has actually spoken to Mike and myself about having duplicate plaques down in there as well. They want to bring as much tradition, and they want to have as much,
Right.
Of the past in there as possible to keep the kids, interested in what has happened in the past, and hopefully get them, excited about the future.
So that's cool. So it might have this Hall of Fame might play a part in that field house that is going to be built.
It's funny when it seems like since we started this thing in 2014, so many things have happened in Derby as far as athletics go. As you mentioned, the new, donation that they're getting and stuff like that. And you look at the girls cross country team and them winning the state title, how great
Amazing
that is.
story, because they don't even have a track.
Yeah, and it really is. And Nick DeLugo does a great job, and he gets a lot of, Mike Gazzo did a great job with those kids with the middle school, and it's just a great, great program. But so many things are happening in Derby now. It's so much more positive than it ever was before.
No, you got a new coach that came in last year with baseball, Coach Steve Boehner, and he's doing great things with the kids. And I get to see a lot more of it being at the high school now every day.
And their basketball coach did a great job. And I know a lot of people would say one win isn't a great job, but if you watched his practices and what he's trying to do, the future looks bright for them as well.
Yeah, the respect that the kids have for him. Shout out to Eric O'Toole. He coaches baseball at Sacred Heart and Waterbury as well, but he does great things with those kids, that the group of kids that he's working with, and just keeping them on track and just watching their demeanor change from one season to another under his leadership.
And there's the talk about, you win one game as a high school kid. That builds character.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says.
I mentioned people who have helped us, and it would be awful on my part not to mention this guy, because George French has, from day one, he came to our first meeting just to see if he could offer any advice. And he is always helping us out behind the scenes. He goes out, he's gotten us ads and stuff like that. And he has supported this thing. And here's a guy who's coaching football year round, basically, because weightlifting, passing leagues, everything. And he's always taken his time to help our Hall of Fame because he loves Derby sports. And, I just want to give him a thank you because he's been great.
Okay, as we wrap it up, is there anything else maybe that I haven't? I'm not the expert here, and I'm really just guest hosting, subbing for Mike, but is there anything else, any other topics? Because we actually have as much time as we need, but is there any other topics that you guys want to bring up about the April 8th Hall of Fame induction?
Like I said, tables are going quick, so, if you want a table, just please, I'll give the number again. My number's 203-305-9442. Please give me a call or email me at neech76@aol.com. And, if you have a list of people you want for a table, we'll get that together. And you could also get in contact with Jen. She's at Derby High every day, and it's 75 Chatfield Street. And if you want to send a check for tickets, whatever you want to send for an ad, just send it to 75 Chatfield Street in Derby and just put attention Jenn Moffat on it. And one other thing I want to mention, though, and I think we're about to, is these committee members, because like I said, we could not do it without these guys. And, you know, Brent Cavallero, he was a graduate of Derby in 1994. He was a 3-sport player at Derby, and he just loves Derby sports. That's why he does it. Danny Shea, who was on the 1985 state championship team for Derby, he was also an all-stater. He's been tremendous at every meeting, always, you know, helping us out whenever we need it. He's been great. Ray Silvernail, who graduated from Derby in 1989. He played football for Derby. He was their punter. Great guy, always giving his time, and always, he comes from East Haven from every meeting. So, I mean, you know, he travels just to get here for us. Bobby Ahern. Now, here's a guy who graduated in 1963, and he was a 3-sport athlete, and a lot of people say he's one of the best athletes Derby ever had. He comes to the meetings. He doesn't want anything to do with himself. It's all about picking this Hall of Fame class, and he's here at every meeting, and he's been tremendous. I mentioned Walt Biesadecki before. Walt played for Derby, both basketball and baseball, from 1971 to 1974. Terrific guy. And that's the thing, too. You have people from the 60s. You have people from the 70s. You have people from the 80s, the 90s. And hopefully as time goes on, we'll get more from that generation. We also added Tom Abel this past year. And I'm sure you're familiar with Tom Abel. He does the PA for the Derby football games. He was a great 2-sport athlete at Derby. He was a baseball player and football player. Tremendous guy. Always, you know, helping us out whenever we need it. I mentioned Steve Owens. I graduated with Steve in 1995. Steve's very passionate, and Steve is not afraid to, you know, debate if he doesn't agree with something. And that's really, you know, great to see, because if we all just agreed on everything, it doesn't work either. You know, there has to be a balance right there. And just trying to think if I missed anybody. I think I got most of them, but let me just make sure. Sometimes, well, of course, Jenn. And, you know, Jenn is great because I'll blow up her phone. You know, if I need to know something, if I can't get her on her cell, I'll call Derby High. You know, and we're constantly going back and forth trying to, oh, should we do this? Should we do that? And, I mean, she's been a tremendous help. And, you know, without these committee members, it's not going to work. And that's the thing, too. We hope that more people will join the committee as time goes on, because, you know, like anything else, nothing lasts forever. So you have to have a future with this, you know, committee. And
is there anything else you wanted to add, Jenn?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've said it over and over and over again, but this committee and this Hall of Fame never would have happened if Mike Cannici didn't have the idea and didn't try to get people together to do it. So a little shout out needs to go to him as well, and just for keeping everybody together and making it happen.
And then I just wanted to ask, because we're about at the 38-minute mark now, so
right.
we have a little bit of
Hey, I'm in no
time.
rush, so keep asking.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, actually, would you mind if I change the subject slightly, just
Sure.
to, and we, of course, bring it back if there's
Sure.
anything else you guys wanted to talk about. But we've been doing this podcast now, Valley Sports Rewind, for like a year now, maybe even.
I think we started in late April. I think we had Rob Hyder on after the April break.
And I'm wondering, because we talked about the podcast in our very first podcast, but this is the first time that we've, you know, done something like this where I'm on it. How do you think? I mean, I will say as of this recording on Friday, March, what is it, the 3rd or something like that? We just uploaded the Jamie Burns episode of Seymour that posted last night about, and it had 123 downloads in like 5 hours, which is good.
Right.
You know, I do a podcast on the weekends, not associated with work at all. I mean, we uploaded one. It got 18 downloads in like a week.
Wow.
So 123 is a respectable number, and that'll grow. And I think the podcast, you know, part of what we do here at the Valley Indy is we live on grant money. So we have to identify the need in the community, and then we have to quantify how we're addressing that need. And one of the things that Valley Sports Rewind has done is this was something that was wanted in the Valley.
Right.
I think I'd have to double check. There was a tremendous growth between, if you look at like our first 2 weeks and then, in August, our 2 weeks, just over very quickly, there was like 136% increase in the amount of people listening. So, because we never talk about, at the Valley Indy, we'd like to sell more ads, and
Right.
people can definitely sponsor this podcast if you so choose. We would greatly appreciate it. But we never talk about performance, or we don't check like page views religiously or
Right.
maniacally, because we're not really, it's more about providing a service for the community. So, all that being said, I'm wondering what your impression is of the podcast, whether you get any feedback from the community, good, bad, or indifferent.
I do. I mean, everybody, it's all been positive. I've never heard anything that's negative. And, anybody that would find a negative, I would have to question it, because it's really like, the guests are on there and they're talking about their days in high school. So I can't see a negative by doing that. You're trying to recognize people. I want to mention this too. It's very important to honor people that are doing stuff right now. And eventually I want to have a couple of the cross country kids on for winning the state title. I'm also going to have one of the cheerleaders on in the next coming weeks, because, it's important to recognize those people. But I really believe that it's been all positive. And when we started, again, like trying to get guests on in the beginning, it was a little difficult because with, their time and stuff. But I would say from October till now, it's really picked up. We are consistently getting guests every week.
Yeah, and I should say, like, just sort of peeling back the onion here, or the thing is, like, Mike volunteers. He's doing this voluntarily. Although he could, if somebody bought an ad, we could get something going. But so he comes in here and he's working around my schedule. And this is just it's because a lot of times, I'll cancel at the last minute, or something falls through. It takes quite a bit of effort to coordinate this all, because Mike is trying to work around my schedule, and I'm a reporter and I have a young family and I got my own obligations. So it really takes an effort. So, but he's doing this out of the goodness of his heart. And so that's good to hear, because, on my end, it's been hard to be consistent. Because sometimes, if there's a building on fire, or Ethan's got a story that he needs help on, we have to rearrange things, and it's not so easy. It's not like you're hanging out here all day from 9 to 5 and being like, all right, yeah, I'll just do that interview at 12. It's like, no, we have that window, and these guests are coming. It would be easier. And maybe it's something we can talk about in the future. Friday at 9:30 isn't always the ideal. People tend to have work at that time, so it is tough. One thing I've been doing. I mentioned I do my another podcast on the side, and what I'm learning from that, because I try to take anything I pick up there and apply it to this, is there are ways to do this completely remote, where you'd be on a computer and your guest could be on a computer, and then I would be like at my house. So maybe there is a situation going forward where it would be like, a Friday or Saturday night, when it's much easier to get people. I could tell you
that.
And I only say all that just so people know.
Yeah. But we will definitely get even more if we're able to do it at night, because there are people that have said to me, can we do it at 7 o'clock at night? So we definitely would.
Yeah, the only thing is that people would have to, the guests would have to contribute to my defense when my wife files for divorce. That's the only thing. Like, when she puts in those divorce papers, I'm going to need legal help.
Right.
But actually, she makes more money than me, so actually maybe I'll go after.
But I really believe this. I really believe, though, it's been positive, and I know it's positive when I get emails or Facebook messages. How come the episode wasn't on this week? Like,
you never see. You got it. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So when you get that, then people are listening, and
that's good. See, I don't get those.
I could see somebody on the street. I see a guy. He's from Shelton, and we talk when we see each other, but like I don't know him that great. But when I see him, he's like, "So who you having on next week?" And I'm like, "Oh, you listened to the show? I didn't even know he did."
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so that's a lesson for me, because when we don't post it, I should put a note on there saying it returns next. I haven't done that.
I'll tell you a funny story.
And that happens because a lot of times, like when we first launched, we would do it like Wednesday night, Thursday morning. It was like set in stone. But what since we're only 2 people here, if I have a story I can hold for a day and then it gets me through a Friday, I'll do that. So that's why sometimes I don't post it on that Wednesday night, because I try to have flexibility because, got to feed the machine.
But I had a parent recently, and this is a funny story. I would never think he doesn't seem like the type that's, into this stuff or anything like this. And he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, I heard your interview with John D." And I said, "Oh, you listened to that?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, I went to Derby. I was the class of 1979. And I never knew he went to Derby or anything. And he just started talking to me, and he knew, like, this person and that person. I was, like, blown away. But you even have, like, people you wouldn't think are listening to this, and they are. So, I mean, that was pretty cool to hear him say that.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And then what about the Derby and Sonia football games that you guys are posting? I know that goes. Do you have more games coming? And that's a YouTube.
Actually,
I just butchered it. I apologize.
That's okay. Actually, Derby Shelton 1993 was just posted. Now, this is a group of kids that we went to school with.
Does that make you feel old, guys, or what? Mike, when did you graduate?
95.
And then Jen, when did you graduate?
96.
Oh, you guys are young. I graduated in 92, man.
You say we're young, but I can remember stuff from that like yesterday, and I can't believe it's been that long. It's depressing, but
Mike really has a memory of like an elephant. You know what I mean?
It's photographic, I think. Yeah.
Just the facts that come out of his mouth. Sometimes I'm like, holy cow! How do you remember that? He's like, it rained during the third quarter for like 10 minutes, and it's true. Somebody else would be like, what it did.
That's my favorite part every week. Where you'll get somebody in here, and Mike will be going over like Pop Warner football games or something like that.
Right.
And the guest, it's amazing because you'll see it, and the guest will be like, you can read his face. And he's clearly thinking to himself, I have no idea what this guy's talking. And then all of a sudden, you'll trigger the memory, and then the guy will talk for 20
minutes.
I think
Jamal
amazing.
Baskins was really funny because
that was a good one.
He was like, how do you remember that? Stuff like that. But, that's just the love for Derby and Valley sports in general, because there were no electronics when I was a kid. I mean, there was Nintendo, but there was none of this stuff that there is today. There were no computers. And I just always say it was a great time back then, when you're listening to your tape decks and you're taping stuff on KC 101 because you want to hear your songs. That stuff was what I loved growing up.
See, I was taping Howard Stern. I was very demented. So I'll just
it's so fun to listen to. Like, I listen every week, and I'm a Derby girl through and through, and Mike's a Derby guy through and through, but he's also a Valley guy, and just the things that he knows about different things, different towns, different sports, and it just goes to show that somebody in his family was bringing him to Ansonia games and Shelton games and Seymour games when he was very young.
Keep in mind, I had a father that went to Derby High and a mother that went to Ansonia High, so it was, I made the mistake one year betting my uncle on the Derby and Ansonia game. I had to wear an Ansonia Chargers shirt at Christmas Eve. That was not fun, but I got him a couple times, so that was good. But
let me ask you, like, in terms of all the episodes that you've done of Valley Sports Rewind so far, do you have a particular favorite?
The John D one was one of my favorites. That was a great one. I really enjoyed interviewing Ben Bartone. I could tell you right now that every one of them I didn't leave there and say, God, man, that was rough. They've all been good. And you know what I noticed? The guests, some of them, when they first start out, the first 5 or 10 minutes, it takes them a little bit to get going.
Yeah.
And then it just picks up as time goes on.
And it's not like the microphones are even here.
Yeah, but it's really been fun. I mean, some of the people I had on, Kevin Rowley, unbelievable. That was a great Tony Branca, that was a great one. Kylie Rodriguez, for a kid, she did great.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, and those two little girls.
That one was great.
I
heard
Cassie and Emma.
Emma Hyder. That was a tremendous
I
one.
I was at the New Haven Independent at the radio station thing over there. I don't even remember what for, but I got into my car, turned on the radio, and that one was playing on the radio
really?
in New Haven, and they were great because it had been a couple of weeks because there was a long. We were taping a lot of these in advance, and then
Emma, you could tell Emma was a little nervous, but she got through it and did great. But God, Cassie acted like she'd been interviewed her whole life. She was just ready to go. Oh yeah,
and she even I told her about the microphones, and at one point she's like banging the table and looking at me, knowing she's not supposed to do. She was like a natural,
and she was basically
hilarious.
telling you what she does when she gets home. And that was the most enjoyable thing
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you want to recognize young kids like that. And the fact that they're going out there and running all the time, I hated running when I was a kid. Like,
I don't even
we
like
had
when people run by my house, I yell at them like, Jenny Ames, stop it.
yeah, like when stuff like that, to see that they're doing that at 9 years old.
Yeah, they were really great.
They need to be recognized. And I think any type of kid, that's the thing, because Derby fans who go to these games and they're watching the basketball team play or the wrestlers or the runners, whatever it might be, the football players, these kids are going out there playing the games. Our part is easy. We're sitting in the stands, but they're actually out there playing. And, it's not always easy. I mean, it's not easy to compete. It's a lot of work. So they really need to be recognized for that. And that's why I think this thing is so cool, because a guy who, 30 years ago did something great. A lot of times that gets forgotten because they don't get enough, recognition. And that's really what I like about it the most. That's what I love about doing the TV show too, is you're kind of giving these men and women need to have something given back to them because they need to be recognized. And I think that's the most important part.
I agree. You're building community. It's
Right.
really cool to see. So, and it's a surprise for me every week. So I guess we will call it a day because we're at the 50-minute mark, and I just want to thank you guys again for doing this, and Mike for stepping up. I mean, we put out a call a year and a half ago, maybe it was even 2 years ago.
But I do have to give Jen the credit though, because you put it out there on Facebook,
And
Jen tagged me in a post, and that's how we got in touch.
Wait a second, what? You weren't following us on Facebook already, Mike?
Oh, I was, but I did not see
right.
that. I saw my Facebook notification.
I am a faithful follower of the Valley Independent Sentinel.
I know, yeah.
Which you told me
you're
that
our favorite.
I think when you interviewed me for the Hall of Fame, the first time we ever talked, you brought her up as someone who always supports the site, and she does a great job. And believe me, like I said, I'll blow up her phone, or I'll get an idea in my head. I'm like, all right, I gotta text her because I need to tell her now, or I'll forget it. And if she's got that phone near her, she'll write right back. So she's been a great help.
That's awesome. All right, that's it. I don't know how to end it, but I will.
I was just going to say thank
Go
you to you
ahead.
guys for always supporting not only the Derby Athletic Hall of Fame, but any of the fundraisers that are going on in the Valley, anything that needs supporting, any families that are out there that need some help. You guys are always right there to help them. So shout out to Eugene and Ethan. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for recognizing it. It's our pleasure.
Don't forget, Saturday night, doors open at 5, event starts at 6. Derby Athletic Hall of Fame at the AM Club. Come on down, April 8th.
Good. That was Mike Cannici, and on behalf of Mike and Jenn Moffat, this is Eugene Driscoll of Valley Sports Rewind, a weekly podcast produced by valleyindy.org, and we will talk to you next time.